Hi, boys and girls. We're back with Mr. Harrison is embarrassing. And remember that the school is celebrating a 50th anniversary. Let me see. It is celebrating its birthday. Um, and the school was named after Miss Elementary. And so she's going to be there. And then, do you remember the last chapter we read that the last time she came, the school was having a food fight and it was not a good situation. Well, there's going to be a TV crew and everything, and so they want the kids to be on their best behavior. All right, so we're on chapter 4, on the Fritz. We marched back to our class in single file because they were in the auditorium for assembly learning that the anniversary or birthday was coming up and that they're going to have to be on their best behavior. So now they're headed back to the classroom. We marched back to our class in single file. I was the line leader. Mr. Granite couldn't get back to our math lesson because we had to clean up the room for elementary. He gave each of us a rag and a spray bottle filled with water. Andrea started singing the cleanup song. Clean up, everybody everywhere. Clean up, everybody do your share. Except that me and the guys changed the last line to, even in your underwear. It was hilarious. Anything to do with underwear is hilarious. Andrea thinks cleaning is fun. What is her problem? Cleaning isn't fun. Getting dirty is fun. That's the first rule of being a kid. But we did want everything to be perfect for when Mrs. Mentry and the news reporters showed up. I was cleaning off the computer table in the corner when I noticed that the screen was filled with a bunch of strange numbers and letters that made no sense at all. Mr. Granite, the computer is on the fritz, I said. Well, maybe I can fix it, said Andrea. I take computer class after school. Andrea takes classes in everything after school. If they give a class on how to take classes, she would take that class so she could be better at taking classes. As it turned out, Andrea couldn't fix the computer. Mr. Granite had to call Mr. Harrison on the intercom. He came running in a few minutes later. Your computer is on the fritz? Mr. Harrison asked. It was working fine yesterday, Mr. Granite told him. Can you get it off the fritz? I asked. Mr. Harrison removed the back of the computer and started poking around at the insides with a screwdriver. I see what's going on, he said. Your external parallel processor can't access enough gigaflops to bitmap the binary protocol, blah, 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 blah. All we need is to upload a new firewall so the network can reboot your motherboard and maximize the serial bandwidth, blah, 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 blah. Mr. Harrison talks funny. Nobody had any idea what he was saying, but in a minute or two, the computer was working fine. Hip hip hooray, I cheered. The computer is off the fritz. While you're here, said Mr. Granite, your smartboard went on the fritz yesterday. Yay, I said, that thing is busted. It should be called a dumb board. Well, can you fix it? Asked Mr. Granite. No problem, said Mr. Harrison. I just need to rebug the analog Bluetooth vector, blah, 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 blah. Nobody had any idea what he was talking about, but of course a few seconds later, the smartboard was off the fritz. Mr. Harrison could fix anything. Computers, laser printers, scanners, intercoms, microphones, even pencil sharpeners, and coffee machines. And there's plenty of old, broken down stuff to fix at our school. That's the thing about a 50-year-old school. Everything is always on the fritz and falling apart. One time, a piece of plaster fell off the ceiling in the hallway and hit Emily right on the head. It was a real Kodak moment. We need to have a tech guy all the time just to fix the stuff that breaks. Hip hip hooray, we all yelled when Mr. Harrison turned on the smartboard. I'm just doing my job, he said. When I see something that's broken, I want to fix it. Can you fix Andrea's brain? I asked, 'cause it's broken. Oh, snap, said Ryan. Andrea was going to say something mean to him, but she couldn't because there was an announcement over the loudspeaker. Mr. Harrison, please report to the office. Office. The copy machine is on the fritz again. Mr. Harrison sighed. I just fixed that old thing yesterday, he told us. It's worn out. I don't think I could fix it again. I'll just have to build a new copy machine like the old one. So you're going to make a copy of the copy machine, I asked. That's right. No, that's weird. Chapter 5. Mr. Harrison's Invention. I was in the vomitorium eating lunch at a table with the guys, and Alexia, Andrea, and her girlfriends were at the next table. And her girly girlfriends were at the next table. What do you think Mr. Harrison's real name is? Alexia asked as she bit into a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. He told us his name is Fritz, said Ryan, who was eating a salad. Ryan will eat anything, even stuff that grew in the dirt. Fritz is Mr. Harrison's nickname, Andrea said, and he won't tell us his real name. It must be really weird, Michael said. If he had a normal name, he would tell us what it was. His name's probably Poindexter, said Neil, the nude kid, or Dorcas. We need to find out his real name, I said. He may be an imposter. What? Emily asked. She looks all scared, like always. Well, maybe Mr. Harrison isn't a real tech guy at all, I explained. Did you ever think of that? Maybe he kidnapped our tech guy. Stop trying to scare Emily, said Andrea. I'm scared, said Emily. He probably took a laser out of one of the laser printers, I said, and he's shooting laser beams at the real tech guy right now. We've got to do something, said Emily, and then she went running out of the vomitorium. That girl will fall for anything. Emily didn't have to go anywhere because you'll never believe who walked into the vomitorium at that moment. It was Mr. Harrison, and he was holding an umbrella. How do you like my new invention? He asked us. You invented the umbrella? Mr. Harrison said, it's a solar-powered umbrella. What? Neil said. I never heard of anything like that. Well, see, Mr. Harrison told us, this umbrella has a built-in solar panel. It uses the power of the sun to open it. I've been working on it for years. He pushed a button on the handle and the umbrella opened up. Wow, we all said, which is Mom upside down. That's neat, Mr. Harrison, said Andrea, who never misses the chance to brown nose a grown-up. Wait a minute, I said. Why would you need that? Nobody uses an umbrella when the sun is out. We only use an umbrella when it's raining. Said Mr. Harrison. You're right. It really was a dumb idea. Then he threw his solar-powered umbrella into the garbage can. I guess I should forget about the other invention I'm working on, he said. A solar-powered flashlight. Mr. Harrison must have been pretty mad that I didn't like his invention because he stormed away. But as he turned around to leave, you'll never believe what happened. He slipped on some spilled juice and fell down. And when he fell down, you'll never believe what happened. His wallet fell out of his pocket. And when his wallet fell out of his pocket, you'll never believe what happened. I pounced on it. And when I pounced on that wallet, I opened it up and looked at the name on the driver's license, and you'll never believe what Mr. Harrison's first name is. I'm not going to tell you. Okay. I'll tell you. But you have to read the next chapter. So, na-na-na-na-boo-boo, I knew. I can get this page turned. Okay, chapter 6. The truth about Mr. Harrison. Mr. Harrison's first name is George. I know Mr. Harrison's real name. I told everybody after I handed back the wallet and he left. What is it? Ryan asked. His name is, I said, I'm not telling. Come on, AJ, said Michael. Spill the beans. I'll be your best friend, said Neil, the nude kid. Arlo, what's Mr. Harrison's first name, said Andrea. It's George, I said. George? Asked Alexia. Well, that's not a weird name at all. I wonder why he wouldn't tell us his name was George, said Michael. George Harrison, said Andrea. Wait a minute. George Harrison was somebody famous. He was one of the Beatles. One of the what? Asked Neil, the new kid. That old rock group, dumbhead, said Michael. Oh yeah, my parents told me about the Beatles, and I played the video game called Rock Band where you play Beatles songs. It's cool. Everybody knows who the Beatles were. Mr. Harrison was one of the Beatles, asked Ryan. Wait a minute, Andrea said. George Harrison of the Beatles died a long time ago. He must have faked his death, I told her. Famous people do that all the time, you know. That doesn't make any sense, AJ said. Michael, why would a rock star fake his death and get a job as a tech guy in a school? He probably hated being famous, I told them. You know, celebrities get sick of signing autographs and having people take pictures of them all the time. He must be hiding out in school so his fans won't bother him anymore. Being a nerdy tech guy would be the perfect disguise, Alexia admitted. But Mr. Harrison doesn't look anything like the other George Harrison, Andrea said. I've seen pictures of him. Haven't you ever heard of plastic surgery, I asked her? And he obviously dyed his hair blonde so he would look completely different. He did not. Did too. He went back and forth like that for a while. But guess who came back into the vomitorium at that moment? It was Mr. Harrison. It's time for the big birthday celebration, he said, all excited. If you want some cake, you need to go to the all-purpose room right away. I love cake. I was about to run out of the vomitorium, but Mr. Harrison grabbed me. Whoa. Not so fast, AJ, he said. It's slippery in here. You might fall down and get hurt. I want to hold your hand. What? I looked at Alexia. Alexia looked at Ryan. Ryan looked at Michael. Michael looked at Neil. Neil looked at Andrea. And we all mouthed the same words. I want to hold your hand? See, I told you that Mr. Harrison was one of the Beatles. There's the song. I wanna hold your hand. Oh gosh, that's so funny. You guys probably don't know that song though. Okay. Chapter 7. The weirdest thing in the history of the world. We wanted to ask Mr. Harrison if he was one of the Beatles, but there was no time. We had to rush to the all-purpose room for the big birthday celebration. I was right behind Alexia. When we got there, a giant cake was on the stage. I mean giant. There must have been enough cake for everybody in the whole school to have a piece. And it was covered with candles. I guess there were 90 of them for Elementary's birthday. Mr. Harrison went up on stage and started lighting them. There's a picture of them. Look at how big that cake is. I saw Mayor Hubble talking to Mr. Klutz at the front of the room. Some guys were carrying around a big TV camera. I didn't see Elementary anywhere. Before we could sit down, a lady I never saw before grabbed me by the arm. She was wearing a hat that said press on it, and she pulled out a pad and a pen. My name is Mrs. Lilly, she said. I work for the News Tribune Bulletin Inquirer. Can I ask you kids a few questions? Sure, Alexia and I replied. So, what's your name, young man? Mrs. Lilly asked. Well, my name is AJ, and I hate school, I told her. Well, hello, little girl, Mrs. Lilly said. What's your name? My name is AJ, and I hate school, said Alexia. Both of you are named AJ? Mrs. Lilly asked us. Well, yes, and both of you hate school? Yes. Tell me why, she said. I need to get a scoop for my paper. Why do you need a scoop, I asked. Did your dog make a poop and you need to scoop it up? No, I mean I'm here to get the real story. Scoop means real story. about elementary school. Mrs. Lilly said, I want the story behind the story. Well, the teachers here are all crazy, Alexia told her. Is that so? Mrs. Lilly said as she jotted down notes in her pad. Tell me more. Our teacher, Mr. Granite, is... Our teacher, Mr. Granite, is from another planet, I told her. He built a spaceship powered by potatoes so he could go home, but a cow bumped into it and crashed into the playground. Interesting, said Mrs. Lilly, writing quickly on her pad. Hey, can we press on your hat? Alexia asked Mrs. Lilly. Well, why do you want to press on my hat? Because it says press on it. Got it? I told her, duh. Mrs. Lilly is silly. She wanted to ask us more questions, but Mr. Klutz made a peace sign, so everybody had to shut up. Take a seat, AJ, he said. I can't, I said. All the seats are screwed to the floor. He means sit down, Alexia told me. I knew that. Some people might say elementary school is old, Mr. Klutz announced into the microphone. Some people might say it's falling apart. Not me. Our school has character. Blah, 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 blah. And our school has blah, 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 blah. Mr. Klutz's speech was really boring. Then Mayor Hubble got up to speak. Blah, 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 he said. Blah, 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 blah. Blah, 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 blah. I thought he was gonna die. And now I would like to introduce our honored guest of the day, the mayor said, the namesake of elementary school, Mrs. Elementary. Mrs. Mentry is really old, and she came toddling out on the stage with a cane. That lady is tiny. She was about the size of R2-D2 in Star Wars. Mr. Klutz adjusted the microphone so Elementary could reach it. I'm so happy your school was named after me, Mrs. Mentry told us, because when you get to be my age, you forget things, and if I ever forget my name, I know that all I need to do is walk down the street and see it in big letters on the side of your school. We weren't sure if Elementary was making a joke or not. Maybe she really does have to walk by our school to remember her name. We all laughed just to be on the safe side. You say it's your birthday, Elementary said. It's my birthday, too. Everybody cheered. She went behind the giant birthday cake and started to sing Happy Birthday, and the whole school joined in. It was loud. When the song was over, Mrs. Mentry started to blow out the candles. There were like 1,100,000 of them. I thought she was going to pass out. Elementary was in the middle of blowing out the candles when the weirdest thing in the history of the world happened. I'm not going to tell you what it was. Okay. I'll tell you. All the lights went out. See you next time, boys and girls.